works. Sit carefully. Okay. So, my heart sank a bit when I read the gospel for today, especially when I got to that last sentence. Your faith has made you well. I did a mental scan of the congregation, and I thought about how many of us have suffered through sickness and death in the past year. Just the past year alone, then we could look at our whole lifetimes, but just in the past year. I'm not betraying any confidences when I say it has been a tough year. So what do we do with this last sentence of the gospel? Your faith has made you well. What does that say to people who aren't healed? We could say, well, they're not healed yet, but we know that not everyone gets healed, no matter how strong their faith. If we only pay attention to the wider culture, we don't hear that message. We hear the message of wellness, and we hear the message of if you're sick and have a disease, it's somehow our fault, right? We didn't eat the right thing, we didn't exercise enough, we didn't have our shots, or we had our shots, or we didn't go to the doctor, or we did go to the doctor, on and on I could go. We may know that the reasoning is flawed, but it's hard to escape it. This last sentence that Jesus says, your faith has made you well, might make us think this idea is biblical, that a strong faith is all we need when we're sick. And if we're sick, it's because our faith is flawed. But again, I say no. It's the reasoning that is flawed. I wish today's reading used a different translation. Think about how we might understand this text if we used a different translation of that last Greek word. Your faith has made you whole. Not well, whole. We can be sick and still be whole. We can be spiritually healthy, even if our bodies aren't in the full bloom of health. Listen to me there, equivocating a bit. Let me just say it even more bluntly. We can still be spiritually healthy, even if we are suffering from a disease that turns out to be impossible to cure. Your faith has made you whole. That translation makes more sense to me. And it may be also less about faith than it is about trust, but I have been focusing on that last word. And so you can spend the whole rest of the week thinking about how the translation would change if you read, your trust has made you whole. Your trust has made you well. Your faith has made you well. Your faith has made you whole. This translation makes more sense. Whole, not well. After all, the other 9 lepers are also made well. Jesus cures them of what we traditionally translate as leprosy. Jesus doesn't have preconditions. They don't have to come back and say thank you. And they don't. The 9 of them don't. And Jesus doesn't say, well, I'm, poof, curses on you. I'm going to give you leprosy back. No. And it's a disease, we should remember, that afflicts the people who suffer it in more than just the physical. Leprosy was seen as one of the most contagious diseases in the ancient world, and lepers were banned from society. When this translation says that 10 men with a skin disease came to him, here too, I fear that we think, oh, they just have an acne outbreak or something. It is much more ferocious than that, and in the ancient world would have been seen as much more ferocious than that. Jesus doesn't only restore these men to physical health, but as we've discussed with other healing stories, Jesus restores them to community. Of course, he can only do so much in this one instance. The Samaritan returns to his role as an outcast in Jesus' society. Less of an outcast than he was when he had leprosy, to be sure, but he's still a foreigner, and as such, he's the only one who doesn't need to go to the priest to show himself, the way the other 9 must do. If we wanted to give the other 9 the benefit of the doubt, we could say, well, they have to go to the priest, and the Samaritan doesn't have to go to the priest. Maybe the other 9 are just following Jesus' instructions. After all, he said to them, go to the priest. Off they go to the priest. Of course, they could say thank you. I'm willing to admit. They could have stopped and said thank you before they went running off, and then they could have gone to the priest. Why does only one leper return to say thank you? That is a good question that Jesus has. Why is it the Samaritan who does so, not the others? By now, we're probably not surprised that it's the person on the bottom of the societal structure who returns to say thank you. We've had reading after reading of outcasts who understand the true nature of Jesus. The tax collectors, the bleeding woman, the Syrophoenician woman, among all of the people who take risks and ask for healing, and Jesus grants them their deepest desire. This story of healing goes a bit deeper. This story of healing reminds us that there's more to wellness than physical health. There's a deeper way to be made whole than to be made free of sickness. And once again, Jesus tells us that faith, a life of faith, is about not quantity, but quality. All of the lepers had similar faith, if we want to assume the best of them. Perhaps their calling out to Jesus isn't faith, but desperation, you might say, if we're assuming the worst. Still, they have enough faith or hope or trust to call out to Jesus, and Jesus heals them. One leper turns around, comes back, returns to Jesus. He returns to show gratitude. These two actions, turning back to Jesus and showing gratitude, these two actions show wellness beyond the physical restoration of health. It's gratitude that redirects the Samaritan back to Jesus. Gratitude is the foundation, not the faith. You could almost say that. It's a subtle message, an intriguing idea that gratitude can move us towards God even before we have the faith that we have been trying to build up. The Samaritan shows us a way to be whole that we may not have made a daily practice, the practice of gratitude and thanksgiving that can ground our faith. I want to believe that gratitude is easier for us than giving up all our money or forgiving someone 70 times 7. But I've met enough people who have so much and who don't have a scrap of gratitude that I know that gratitude can be just as tough. I've met people who are like the man in the parable from a few weeks ago who pride themselves on their economic future and fortune, rather than acknowledge the work of those who have made it necessary to build bigger and more barns. It's human nature to assume that our successes come to us because we are talented, and conversely, that our lack of success is not our fault at all. If we assume that our success is justly ours alone, we may not ever find our hearts moved to gratitude. But eventually, we will likely find ourselves spiritually starved and stunted. It's gratitude that can make us whole, make us more faithful people who can do the even harder work of forgiving and sharing resources, giving money away, working to restore peace and wholeness to the whole wide world, a world where we no longer see the stark divisions between insider and outsider described in the recent letter signed by a majority of the bishops from the ELCA. Gratitude, I have good news, is one of those practices that is really easy to start. Decades ago, many of us, you might have been one of them, encouraged by Oprah Winfrey, many of us kept gratitude journals, a simple practice of writing down a list of things we're grateful for, doing that each and every day. Some days we listed profoundly good luck. Other days the list was more basic, gratitude for a bed to sleep in and a stomach that was full. Keeping a daily gratitude list is a great way to end the day or start it. Instead of posting to social media all the things that make us angry, we could instead post all the things that make us feel grateful. We could keep a journal by our bed. We could go back once we kept it for a while and look back and remind ourselves of how much we have to be grateful for day in and day out. If we do this practice for a few months, we will find that we are more profoundly whole. It's a simple task. And in our Old Testament lesson, we get a warning about how hard it can be to do the simple tasks that can make us whole. In another story of a healing from what is traditionally translated as leprosy, Naaman has a simple task, to wash in the Jordan. But he wants the healing to be different. We hear him grumble, sure, I get healing, but can't I go to Damascus? Those rivers are just as good, maybe even better. His servants are the ones who turn him around, who redirect him to God by saying, if the prophet had commanded you to do something more difficult than washing, would you not have done it? How much more when all he said to you was wash and be clean? To paraphrase, the servants say, you want it to be even easier than it is? Naaman's story has a happy ending because he has the capacity to recognize good advice, even if it comes from his underlings. Once clean, Naaman returns to the prophet Elisha to acknowledge that Elisha's God is the one true God. Keep in mind, it's Elisha's people and God whom Naaman has been fighting. Here too, his gratitude redirects him to God. Gratitude like that of Naaman and the healed Samaritan can be such a simple task. Yet we know how difficult it can be to do the simplest practices that can lead us to spiritual healing and wholeness. We've known this basic fact about human nature since ancient times. We say, if it's free, it's worthless. If it's easy, why do it? If it's quick, I can always put it off. Eventually, though, this current of thought can lead from postponement to inaction, and then to a refusal to see that we have anything to be grateful for. It's the daily practice of gratitude that can turn this tide. It's gratitude that can turn us around, as the Samaritan turned around. Gratitude that can reorient us back to Jesus, back to wholeness. Today and every day, let us wash in the river of gratitude. May the current of the river of gratitude turn us in a different direction, away from all the distractions that swirl towards us. Let us swim in the river of gratitude each day and allow that gratitude to orient us to God. By doing this practice of gratitude, we will be made whole. And for that, we will be grateful. Amen. Amen. We will now sing the hymn of the day. We come